NFL coach DeLand McCullough went looking for his mother and found much more. Like his fellow NFL coaches, DeLand McCullough, the Kansas City Chiefs running backs coach, always feels the November pressure. However, November of 2017 brought McCullough a different but just as extraordinary and thrilling feeling. Despite his success in the NFL, something was still missing from the coach's life. See, DeLand McCullough was adopted and wondered for years who his birth parents were. Most importantly, he wondered why his birth mother gave him up. Then, when Pennsylvania changed some of its adoption laws, everything changed. One day, an envelope made its way to McCullough's house, an envelope that opened a path to the truth about so much more than to the identity of his birth mother. The story of DeLand McCullough begins in Pennsylvania in December of 1972. When he was 6 weeks old, McCullough was given up for adoption by a mother whose name he never knew. Baby DeLand was waiting in an orphanage for a family that would take him in as their own. Luckily for McCullough, that family was on its way. Adele McCullough saw baby DeLand and his big brown eyes and fell in love. "I knew that was my son," she later told ESPN. Instantly, she and her husband, A.C. McCullough, just a simple couple from Youngstown, Ohio, decided to adopt the forsaken baby. McCullough's home was often turbulent due to marital issues between his adoptive parents. DeLand's adopted father, A.C., was a local radio disc jockey. He was often away from home, especially in the evenings. Then, when DeLand was just a baby, Adele's father fell ill and moved in with the McCullough family. The need to feed and support another person at home caused financial strife for the family. Still, DeLand described his early life as protected, warm, and comfortable. With the McCulloughs, DeLand found not only parents but also a brother, Damon. The two brothers were always very close, even when things were not great. Despite their issues, Adele, her father, A.C., Damon, and DeLand made do, for a while at least. When DeLand McCullough was only 2, his adoptive parents separated. Ever since then, he has rarely seen or heard from A.C., the man who gave him his last name. DeLand's adoptive mother, now Adele Cummer, had to find a way to support herself and her 2 sons. It was tough. She did the best she could to keep her head above water and handle the debt. And yet, DeLand remembers times when the utilities would shut off for days at a time because of past due bills. Despite the challenges, Adele made sure her sons would get the best chance possible at a better life. She pushed them to work hard in school and get the best grades they could. She also encouraged them to become active in school life, sporting activities, and in the church community. Church and faith became a big part of young DeLand's life, a place of refuge when times got tough. But young DeLand McCullough found another passion, one that would change the course of his life. DeLand McCullough's home life continued to be difficult. Following the divorce, Adele Cummer was in more than one abusive relationship with men who sought to take advantage of the single mother. Looking for reasons to get out of the house and escape their financial and domestic problems, DeLand threw himself into sports. He was always highly athletic and interested in a variety of sports. However, football always came first. As he told ESPN, "When I was out in the field practicing, I didn't think about the electric bill or about how things were at home." At first, DeLand McCullough was mostly interested in football for the opportunity it offered to escape. But then something interesting happened. DeLand realized that he not only liked football, he was also very good at it. According to his brother Damon, the guys at school loved playing with him because it was fun just to watch him play. McCullough made varsity in high school and played running back. He realized that football was much more than a hobby for him. It was a real passion. Better still, he realized he was one of the few good enough to one day go pro. High school senior DeLand McCullough was doing quite well. He was a successful varsity football player, popular among his peers, and doing above average in school. And, like the rest of his family, he was also very active in the local church. Spirituality and his success on the field offered him a lot of joy and substance, but DeLand still felt a void. The instability at home kept him wondering about his roots. He couldn't help but wonder, again and again, who were his birth parents and why they gave him up for adoption. Despite the thought of his birth parents pestering him, DeLand McCullough was still focused on the football field. His talent and devotion to the sport helped him make a name for himself, and college football scouts came to watch him play. Not only was McCullough talented, but he was known for being a natural leader for his team. Youngstown State was trying to recruit him, as were Kent, Akron, and numerous other schools in the region. However, one recruiter got DeLand's special attention. DeLand recounted that moment to ESPN. "I remember looking down from the class window and saw a real nice car downstairs. Candy apple red Mercedes with gold rims on it. Inside the real nice car was Sherman Smith, a Miami University coach and recruiter. Like all the other recruiters, he had heard about young DeLand's talent and decided to try and get him on his team. Smith watched McCullough at practice and then they had a short conversation. By the end of it, McCullough was on the Miami team. From the moment he laid eyes on DeLand McCullough, Smith knew all the buzz from the college football circuits was true. You could tell that he was a real tough guy. He wasn't looking for excuses to not succeeding. He was looking for a reason to succeed." The appreciation was mutual and also shared by Adele Cummer. Adele found Smith to be a true gentleman, attentive and respectful, the kind of man she knew she could trust with the professional fate of her driven son. McCullough signed with Miami University and moved from Youngstown to Oxford, Ohio. The original connection he felt with Mr. Smith, now Coach Smith, was still there. That coach soon became a mentor for young DeLand. Smith also became DeLand's support system for personal and academic issues, a personal mentor as well as a professional one. Smith told him, "You may not be looking for a father, but I am going to treat you like you are my son." The void that DeLand was feeling began to fill. DeLand was always an earnest young man, dedicated to his sport. He knew that succeeding on the field meant more than social success and positive reinforcements from his father figure or friends. This was his opportunity to leave poverty behind forever and help his family on the way too. With his natural drive, along with the moral and professional support of his mentor, freshman DeLand McCullough quickly became a star of the Miami U field. He even earned the nickname the Unstoppable One. DeLand, who was always running like his hair was on fire, broke one school record after another on the field. He wasn't drafted when he graduated in 1996, but he signed as a free agent with the Cincinnati Bengals. He was disappointed not to make the draft but kept a positive, practical outlook. DeLand made the most of the opportunity, truly leaving an impression on the league. In fact, he was leading the NFL in preseason rushing while on the Bengals. But then, something happened that would change the trajectory of his life forever. During a game in August of 1996, DeLand McCullough was injured, bad. Mid-play, he tore several ligaments in his right knee and needed to be carried off the field. Afterward, McCullough looked for ways to get himself back in playing shape, making good use of his famous devotion. Sadly, however, there was nothing that could restore his knee back to its former functionality. DeLand was only 23, and he was out of the NFL. But that wasn't the end for DeLand's journey in professional football. In fact, it was only the beginning. However, it would be a few years before DeLand would return to the field. DeLand truly thought his football days were behind him. So, he moved to one of his favorite places in Ohio, Columbus, and started working in a group home. While it wasn't the job of his dreams, it handed DeLand McCullough a different dream. His dream woman, Darnell, the woman he fell for, was his colleague at the group home. They clicked instantly and quickly developed a strong bond. He told her the story of his life, from his adoption and home life to his lost career as an NFL player. Within a year, they were deeply in love and getting married. Creating a new home and family with Darnell gave DeLand the sense of belonging that he had always searched for. So, when Darnell became pregnant, both partners were absolutely ecstatic. During their first visits to the doctor in the hospital, the couple was often asked about their medical history and that of their parents. DeLand didn't know anything about his birth parents, who they were or if they were even alive or dead. These unanswered questions meant that Darnell and DeLand had no idea if their child would be at risk for any hereditary diseases or issues. All of DeLand's old questions about his biological family resurfaced, more persistent than ever. DeLand McCullough decided to look for his biological family and find out the truth, once and for all. The task was daunting, but he knew that until he learned the truth, he could not have peace of mind. His adoptive mother, Adele, told him that he was originally from Pennsylvania. With that single piece of information, DeLand traveled to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to view the adoption records. However, when he arrived, he discovered an unexpected obstacle. Because of a state law from 1984, all adoption records were sealed. Once again, it seemed like the truth about his biological family would always elude DeLand. Though he was disappointed, DeLand wasn't going to lose focus on his life. It just meant that, without his family health records, DeLand and Darnell needed to keep a closer eye on their children's health. Thankfully, they are incredible parents. DeLand and Darnell's family continued to grow, with Darnell giving birth to 4 beautiful children. Now, DeLand had a loving wife, sweet children, a caring mother, and a loyal brother. DeLand was also still in touch with Sherman Smith, his old mentor and the closest thing to a father DeLand had ever known. Then, his positivity paid off once again with a great change in his professional life. After years of working odd jobs and coaching high school football, DeLand McCullough returned to his college football roots. In 2011, Miami University made him their running backs coach, taking over for his former mentor on Sherman Smith's recommendation. A new generation of athletic talent was growing, and he would help them find their path and make themselves better players and better men. He took the opportunity to influence his players in the same way that Smith had influenced him. Over the next few years, DeLand McCullough coached Miami before moving on to the Indiana University Hoosiers. Then, he got a call from Sherman Smith. Smith was the running backs coach for the Seattle Seahawks at the time. While looking for those capable of stepping up from college football to the NFL, his former protege came to mind. Thrilled at the opportunity, McCullough packed his things, kissed his kids and wife goodbye, and flew to Seattle for a few months. After nearly a decade, he and Smith had their football reunion in 2014. Following his trial period, McCullough was placed in charge of personal drills, and the family moved to the West Coast. During his tenure with the Seattle Seahawks, DeLand did his best, working hard and making his mentor proud. Others noticed his passion as well, including legendary football college USC. In 2017, McCullough became USC's head running backs coach. While DeLand was hard at work inspiring his USC players, the Pennsylvania state legislators were hard at work too. They passed House Bill 162, which unsealed state adoption records. When he heard about the change, DeLand was happy and quick to act. The joy he found in his family and career did not quell the questions that plagued him since he was a young boy. Where did he come from? Who were his parents? Why did they give him up? DeLand applied to have his adoption records opened. He sent in the necessary paperwork and waited for the complete file to arrive at his California home. Days and weeks went by, with no news. The wait felt like forever. Then, one afternoon in November, he came home from work, looked in the mailbox, and there it was. Enclosed in the envelope was his original birth record. It recorded the birth of a John Kenneth Briggs in Allegheny County, PA, on December 1, 1972. DeLand had no idea that was his given name, or that his adoptive parents had given him a new name. But, of course, that was just the beginning. On the birth certificate, it stated that his mother was Carol Denise Briggs and that she was 16 when she gave birth. It was an emotional moment, finally seeing the name of the woman that had given birth to him. Then DeLand did what any person did in 2017 when they wanted to find someone. He turned to Facebook. Not expecting much, he typed in her name and saw a picture of a woman who bared a striking similarity to him and his children. DeLand was shocked, confident this must be his mother. He decided it was time to approach her. That week, Carol Briggs received a message on Facebook. "Hello, I apologize for reaching out to you like this, but did you have a son in Allegheny County in 1972 that you put up for adoption?" Carol saw the message and was amazed. "How could anyone have known this?" she replied. "Yes." Another question came. "What did you name the baby?" She quickly replied again, "John." She didn't know what it was about, but she could feel something extraordinary was happening. Then, her phone rang. Carol Briggs picked up her ringing phone, not knowing what to expect. She looked at DeLand McCullough's Facebook profile, noticing that he was the exact age her son would be. She quickly realized this must be the boy she gave up all those years ago. At first, the two were tense and the conversation was laden with emotion, but soon, the two were talking with ease. "It was like I had known her all my life," McCullough told ESPN. He told her, "I'm John. Where are you?" He didn't expect the answer she gave at all. Carol Briggs said she was in Youngstown, Ohio. That answer blew DeLand away. The mother and the son realized that they were probably less than 10 minutes away from one another during the first 10 years of his life. DeLand was confused as to how she got from Pennsylvania to Ohio. Carol explained to her son that she was only 16 when she realized she was pregnant. She and his father, once her boyfriend, were already broken up. Carol never even told him of the pregnancy. She didn't tell anyone. However, Carol's mother could not be fooled. She quickly realized her daughter was pregnant. Within a week, Carol was sent away to Pittsburgh, to a home for other unwed mothers. Carol didn't return to Youngstown until after DeLand was born and adopted. On the day of her son's birth, Carol took in the sight of her newborn baby boy. She thought that this must be the last time she would ever saw him before his adoption. Nonetheless, she decided to give him a name, John Kenneth. Deland wanted to know if he had any brothers or sisters. Maybe he even knew them from his childhood in Youngstown. Carol explained she never had any other children and never married. Then came the inevitable question for the man who practically grew up fatherless his whole life. Who is my dad? Carol was emotionally conflicted. Deland's father, after all, never even knew that he had a son. Only 3 people had ever even known who the father was. But she knew in her heart, from the first moment they spoke on the phone, that Deland must be her son and that he deserved the truth after decades of wondering. When Deland heard the name his mother said, he couldn't believe it. Your father is a man named Sherman Smith. When Deland McCullough heard those words, he almost passed out. He couldn't say anything. Could it be that the man that he had known all these years, that played such a pivotal role in his life as an adult, was his birth father? Carol could hear her son choking up on the other side of the line. When she asked if he was okay, he said, I have known Sherman my whole life. He had been my mentor for 28 years. Carol was just as shocked as Deland was. She tried to find the right words to say, but it didn't matter. I could barely even hear anything she said. It was that shocking to me, said McCullough. That night, Deland couldn't sleep. He was tossing in bed, trying to grasp the unbelievable turn of events that had led his birth father back into his life as a father figure. First thing in the morning, he asked for Carol's permission to share the information with Smith. Carol wholeheartedly agreed. It was time for everyone to reconcile with the truth. Immediately as he got the green light from his mother, Deland texted the man he still called Coach. Coach, I need to talk to you. It's important. Sherman Smith answered the ringing phone, assuming that they would talk about professional matters. But Deland was leading the conversation in a direction that seemed a little odd to Smith. You know that I'm adopted, right? At first, Smith was just happy that his young protege could finally reconnect with his birth parents. The birth certificate arrived in the mail, and I found my mother. She's great. She's from Youngstown. Then he told him Carol's name. Before Smith could even process that he had once known Deland's birth mother, McCullough shared with him what Carol said, that he was, in fact, Deland's father. To his own knowledge, Sherman Smith only had 2 sons from his wife and 3 grandchildren. He had no idea that he might have another child. As Deland was waiting on the other end of the line, Smith was silent, shocked to the core. I'm glad I was sitting down when he told me, Smith told ESPN. It took him a few minutes to get his thoughts together. Then, Smith asked for Carol's number. That day, Deland's birth parents talked for the first time in 45 years. Not exactly the icebreaker conversation you want with the guy you had been fooling around with. We have a 45-year-old son. How are you? Joked Carol Briggs. Smith, ever the gentleman, was pleasant and kind, even when he was completely shocked. Carol was thrilled to find someone who could share the story of Deland and his life with her, someone who witnessed his development into an adult. She was also moved and grateful knowing that in an odd twist of fate, Deland did get to have a father in Sherman after all. She asked Smith, is Deland okay? Is he a good man? Smith replied, he is that and more. You couldn't ask for a better person to be your son. Though Briggs and Smith seemed quite confident that Deland must be their son, Deland was careful. After years of having father figures disappear from his life, his suspicion was understandable. This story simply felt too surreal to be true. Smith and McCullough took a paternity test. They waited for the result for weeks. Could this larger-than-life story actually be true? When another fateful envelope arrived in the mail, it was finally confirmed. Deland McCullough was indeed Sherman Smith's son. A few weeks later, Deland arrived at the doorstep of his mentor, coach, and now father in Nashville, Tennessee. For the first time in his life, Deland heard a father say the words, my son. It was a God thing, said Deland. Adele Comer, pictured above, was the next person to hear the unbelievable news. She was obviously amazed. No matter how it came to be, this is our family. She set up a family reunion for everyone in Youngstown in July 2018. The family reunion would be the first of many for this new large family. The story of Deland McCullough and his birth parents seems like something out of a soap opera, but these are genuine people with real emotions and life stories. Deland McCullough is now an NFL running backs coach, just like his father, for the Kansas City Chiefs. An ESPN story about the family made waves. Celebrities also took notice, including Reese Witherspoon. She tweeted, McCullough's story had me in tears. It made me believe in fate, the power of family and divine intervention. When you consider the incredible paths that Deland, Carol, and Sherman have taken, and the ways these paths have intersected, it's easy to agree with the Hollywood starlet.